The movie opens with the bustling city of Moscow, Russia. Deep beneath the streets, an underground subway system carries thousands of passengers every day. Hidden below the city is a massive network of tunnels, and one of the workers responsible for inspecting them is a man named Sergei. Late one night, while performing a routine inspection, Sergei notices something that immediately feels wrong. Water is slowly seeping through part of the tunnel wall. Without wasting any time, Sergei rushes to report it to the station's assistant manager, Michael. Nervously, he explains everything he saw and begs him to take it seriously before something terrible happens. But Michael doesn't believe a single word. Instead, he brushes Sergei off, convinced he's simply been drinking. Sergei repeatedly insists he's completely sober, but Michael refuses to listen. In his mind, water inside a subway tunnel is impossible, so he ignores the warning and sends Sergei away. And that decision is about to cost far more than anyone realizes. The story then shifts to a private apartment, where a woman named Irina is spending time with another man named Vlad. During their conversation, her phone keeps ringing, but she deliberately ignores every call. The person trying to reach her is her husband, Andrei. The following morning, Andrei, who works as a doctor, gets ready to take his daughter, Ksenia, to school. Unfortunately, the roads are packed with traffic. Running out of options, he decides the fastest route is the subway. Coincidentally, Vlad also boards the metro that same day. Meanwhile, Sergei is outside spending time with a woman named Galina. As they're relaxing together, something suddenly clicks in his mind. He remembers the strange smell inside the tunnel. It wasn't ordinary dirty water. It smelled like river water. Right then, he realizes the danger may be much worse than he first imagined. Before he can do anything, police officers arrive because drinking in a public place isn't allowed. Galina quickly slips away and disappears into the subway station, but Sergei isn't as lucky. The officers stop him before he can leave. Even while they're questioning him, Sergei desperately tries to explain that people inside the subway are in danger. He begs them to let him go so he can warn someone before it's too late. Unfortunately, no one takes him seriously. At that exact moment, the subway train is racing through the underground tunnel. As it gains speed, the vibrations become stronger and stronger. The aging tunnel walls begin groaning under the pressure. Tiny cracks slowly widen until they suddenly give way. Without warning, a massive surge of water bursts into the tunnel. The train operator sees water covering the tracks ahead and instantly slams on the emergency brakes. But the train is moving far too fast. Passengers are thrown forward as the cars jolt violently. People lose their balance. Luggage flies everywhere, and panic spreads through every compartment. Then the situation gets even worse. The train jumps off the tracks and crashes hard against the tunnel walls. Several cars twist out of position as debris scatters throughout the tunnel. Within seconds, the peaceful commute turns into complete chaos. Water continues pouring inside, rising higher every moment as frightened passengers struggle to understand what's happening. Among the survivors, Andrei eventually regains consciousness. When he opens his eyes, he realizes he's trapped beneath other passengers. Fighting through the confusion, he manages to pull himself free. The first thing on his mind isn't escaping. It's finding his daughter. He desperately searches through the damaged train, calling out for Ksenia, while terrified passengers begin climbing onto the tracks, hoping they'll find a way out before the tunnel completely floods. Everyone is focused on one thing: survival. Vlad notices the growing panic and climbs onto the roof of one of the subway cars to move more easily through the wreckage. From there, he spots Andrei pulling Ksenia to safety. Even in the middle of this disaster, not everyone is thinking about helping others. A few people take advantage of the confusion, quietly stealing valuables from abandoned bags while everyone else fights to stay alive. Inside another damaged subway car, two young passengers, Dennis and Elisa, are still alive. Elisa suddenly begins struggling to breathe. Realizing what's happening, Dennis quickly searches through his backpack, finds her inhaler, and hands it to her just in time. Back in the control room, warning systems begin flashing red. Everyone there immediately understands what that signal means. A catastrophic accident has happened underground. Only then does Michael realize Sergei had been telling the truth all along. But by now, it's already far too late. The nightmare underground is only getting worse. Not far from the wrecked train, another subway train is still sitting on the line, waiting for clearance. Suddenly, its driver receives an emergency emergency call from headquarters. The order is immediate. Power to the tunnel must be shut down because the flooding is spreading fast. If the electrical current reaches the water, everyone still trapped inside could be in even greater danger. Back inside the damaged train, another survivor named Mikhail prepares to climb down onto the tracks along with everyone else. Before he can, Vlad stops him. He warns that the rails may still be carrying electricity, and with water covering the tunnel floor, stepping down now could be fatal. Only moments later, that fear becomes reality. The train on the neighboring track begins moving, and as the electrical system activates, the flooded tunnel suddenly becomes extremely dangerous. The current spreads through the water almost instantly. The survivors who manage to reach dry ground are safe, but many others aren't as fortunate. In the middle of all this, Vlad notices a dog whose owner never made it through the crash. He gently picks up the frightened animal, but then uses it to test whether the water is still dangerous before risking his own life. Once he realizes the current has stopped, he immediately brings the dog back. It's a harsh reminder that when survival is on the line, people don't always make noble choices. Elsewhere, Dennis and Elisa continue searching for a way out. Just as they move forward, one of the damaged train cars suddenly tilts toward them. With almost no time to react, Elisa forces open a nearby door and pulls Dennis inside moments before they're trapped. Meanwhile, at another station, people waiting for their train are shocked as exhausted, injured survivors begin emerging from the tunnel. Covered in dust and barely able to walk, they look almost unrecognizable. An announcement immediately follows. The flooded station is being completely sealed off while emergency crews try to contain the disaster. At the same time, city officials gather for an emergency meeting. Their priorities are clear: rescue everyone still trapped underground, cut the tunnel's electrical supply, and somehow recover the stranded train before the flooding becomes uncontrollable. Watching the breaking news from home, Irina is overwhelmed with fear. She immediately calls her daughter's school, hoping Xenia arrives safely. Instead, she receives the answer she was terrified to hear. Xenia never made it there. In that instant, Irina realizes her daughter is still inside the subway with Andrei. Without hesitation, she rushes toward the station, trying to contact Vlad on the way for any information. By the time she arrives, police officers, soldiers, rescue teams, and emergency workers have already surrounded the area. Crews are working non-stop as they search through the disaster site and help anyone they can reach. Underground, Andrei and the remaining survivors reunite with Galina. Soon afterward, a large man named Mikhail joins the group, and together they continue deeper through the tunnel, eventually meeting Dennis and Elisa as well. But just when it seems they've found a safe route, another disaster strikes. The powerful force of the rushing water sends several detached subway cars sliding directly toward them. Everyone scrambles into a narrow opening along the tunnel wall. Almost everyone makes it. Mikhail doesn't. Unable to escape in time, he's caught by the oncoming train car, while the others are forced to keep moving. Eventually, they discover an underground bunker located beneath one of the city's main roads. The area is connected to deep drainage tunnels, but they're buried so far below the surface that shouting for help is useless. There isn't even a phone signal. Meanwhile, the wrecked subway cars continue blocking the tunnel behind them, preventing the floodwater from draining away. As a result, the water level keeps rising higher and higher. Fortunately, after climbing to a slightly higher section inside the bunker, Andrei's phone finally picks up a signal. He immediately calls Irina and tells her exactly where they are. The information is passed straight to the rescue teams, who begin preparing equipment to reach them. As heavy machinery arrives above ground, the increasing pressure inside the tunnel becomes too much for the damaged train. One of the subway cars suddenly breaks apart with tremendous force. Although the water level briefly drops inside the bunker, the powerful surge sweeps the survivors away before rescuers can reach them. When emergency workers finally descend through the manhole, the bunker is completely empty. Following the path of the rushing water, the survivors eventually climb onto a dry section of track farther down the tunnel. But before anyone can celebrate, Vlad makes a shocking confession. He openly tells Andrei that he's been involved with Irina, and even suggests Andrei should simply let her go. The words hit Andrei like a punch. His emotions finally boil over, and the two men struggle fiercely until the others manage to intervene. At that exact moment, Galina screams as loudly as she can. Her voice echoes through the tunnel, and this time, someone hears it. The rescue team above finally pinpoints their location. Just when hope begins to return, the tunnel starts collapsing even further. A massive wall of river water tears through the underground passage, threatening to wipe out everything in its path. Realizing the danger, one of the rescue workers urgently radios the control room, ordering the floodgate ahead to be closed immediately. If the water isn't contained now, the entire system, and possibly areas above ground, could be overwhelmed. The gate is shut, but the survivors are still trapped inside. With almost no other option, everyone follows the rescuers through a drainage passage leading beneath a large manhole. One by one, they're pulled safely to the surface. Against all odds, they've made it out alive. Even the dog survives the ordeal. Later, Sergei reunites with Galina. Dennis and Elisa decide they don't want to waste another moment apart, realizing how quickly life can change. Irina also makes her final choice. She leaves Vlad behind and returns to Andrei, choosing to rebuild her family after everything they